Hi, everyone. You are watching The Self Connection with Ginny Brown and Kelly Pietro, where we have conversations with a group of ascended masters known as the multitude of the greater good.
Ellie asked the questions, and the multitude answers through me. When she asks, I never know what's going to show up. So it's always whatever the multitude thinks is necessary to be said is what is said. So thanks, Kelly, for asking the questions, and welcome, everyone. Thanks for watching our videos.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Ginny. Thanks for channeling. So today I feel led, I felt led to one word, but then it kind of unfolded into a few words. And then I realized, oh, these are what many people will refer to as like the affliction of or the demon of the lower chakras. So, and in this way, so the demon of the root chakra is fear. And I'm saying it as if it is so, but we're going to find out, right? The demon of the sacral chakra is said to be guilt. The demon of the solar plexus chakra is said to be shame. And the demon of the heart chakra is said to be grief. So I kind of wanted to talk about those words and get some clarity and deeper understanding from the multitude on those. But I kind of want to take them one at a time, if that sounds good to you.
It's fine with me.
Okay. Um, okay, so well, let's start with, do they have an opening statement around this topic that they would like to share with us?
I have to laugh because they always will have an opening statement if you ask for one. It is important to understand that each and every one on the earth plane has a reason for being, and each and every one on the earth plane has decided what is right for them to experience. Therefore, each and every other one knows what is right for one to bring forth within oneself. When one is ready to move forward, one allows oneself to feel the feeling, whether it be categorized as a good feeling or a bad feeling on the earth plane is unimportant. It is important, however, to understand the feeling is that which necessitates the growth from within. It is the feeling that is required for one to move forward. And it does not matter in which, it does not matter in which, with one chakra, it does not matter within with one chakra that it is uh, attested to is the word, attached to, or whatever, associated with would be more what I would think it would be.
Okay, I had a feeling they were going to say that. So it's so funny because I feel like they've said something in a previous episode when we talked about the chakras, like that's like a good blueprint to work with, but it's not always true. There's no set rules about this belongs with this chakra and that belongs with that chakra. That it can vary from person to person. And my personal experience is like I will become educated on a topic, right? And then I'll ask the multitude and they'll kind of uh debunk some of it. And then I go through a process of, oh, well, now how do I think about this, right? But what I've learned is like, even though that it is true that no one attribute can be directly correlated with one chakra, when I'm sitting with a person, it's kind of like how my higher power, God, universe, whatever guides work with me to guide me, right? So if I'm sitting with a person and they start talking about grief, then I suddenly focus in on the heart chakra. Like it's almost a way for energy in that session to move and guide us both, right? To get us to, maybe it's the plant that will help them the most, or where to move energy, or how to have practices around self-love because we're talking about matters of the heart, or how to have practices around um, where to feel safe and secure because we've been talking about themes that I would identify as the root chakra. So I still think it's like a helpful blueprint, but I think it's good to know, like, not to get overly caught up with it because it's not a one size fits all.
Right. Right.
Okay, so the question that came to me as you were channeling is to ask, because they talk about like certain emotions that we are kind of invited to feel within our lifetime. Just the feeling necessitates growth, I think is the term they used. So my question is, first, in what way does fear necessitate growth?
It is important to understand that each and every one on the earth plane has lived, it's like consecutive lifetimes. It is important to understand that each one, regardless of how many years, Earth years have passed, is of no consequence. Each one's lifetime is required in order to move forward to the next lifetime of being. Therefore, many things happen, many experiences, many allowances of being are created. Therefore, one is able to move from one lifetime to the next. However, during that previous lifetime, there are many things, many objects, many items, many experiences that have not been completed. Therefore, the feeling needs to be generated in order to complete the unprocessed process. In our estimation, it is important that you understand that when one moves forward in a feeling of fear, it is 99% of the time a past life experience that has not yet been expressed, has not yet been completed, has not yet been accomplished. And when one is able to move through that fear to accomplish the experience, one is able to say, oh, okay, now that was that, and this is then, and now I move forward in that which I know. In our estimation, it is quite right that it be that way. However, there are those on the earth plane, who believe it is right to remain in that state of being. Therefore, they are unable to accomplish the completion of the previous experience. Therefore, it moves with them throughout their current lifetime. When one is ready to complete a process, one does. And when one is able to say, okay, I feel this feeling, I don't know where it comes from or why, but I'm willing to allow it to be. Then one can say, okay, here's my feeling, here's what I know, and here's what I would like. And in so doing, one allows oneself to move forward in that area. We would highly recommend that each one takes the opportunity to feel that feeling, whether it be fear or anything else, and acknowledge that it is part of their life. As many would try to, it's like put off the fear, say, oh, it doesn't bother me, and the next thing they know, they are quite fearful again. In our estimation, it is quite right that for them, fear is a normal circumstance of being. However, it is not always necessary to carry it forward. If one says, okay, I'm feeling this feeling, I know I don't like it, I know it is part of me, and I know I would like to heal it, one is able to heal that part of self. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Wow, that was so good. And I have so many follow-up questions now, so I don't know if we're going to get to all the other feelings, but because this one is very
One feeling at a time is fine.
Yeah,
Probably,
this one's timely and pertinent to the world. Right now it's February 6th, 2025. And I don't need to go into the ways of the world right now. But I mean, I will a little bit just for the sake of asking some of these questions. Okay, so what I think I heard was like, if we are triggered into fear in this life, it's very likely, 99% likely, that that fear began from an experience in a past life. And it's being carried into this life in order to be healed and resolved once and for all.
right.
And so, um, to disallow the feeling of fear would potentially result in carrying it forward to another life. In other words, we have the opportunity, and we can substitute the word fear for any emotion in here, I'm imagining. Um, but if we don't resolve it in this life, we could potentially have to resolve it in the next. Now, what, you're getting something?
No, I was just feeling some
Okay.
feeling.
Okay. Would you say that's sounds about right? That's a
Sounds right to me.
okay. So, what's very interesting with that knowledge is there is so much fear in the world right now. And I imagine it's just our generation's version of fear. That every generation before us likely had a big thing to fear, right? There was the time of the Black Plague, everyone feared that. There's a time of war that people fear. Um, you know, different genocides fear, right? So, okay. So the multitude said something about to allow yourself to feel the feeling of fear. My question would be to so that people can really understand what they mean by that is what does disallowing fear or any feeling, what can that look like?
It is important to understand if one disallows any part of themselves, it cannot be completed in the process that they have chosen to complete. In our estimation, it can look like avoidance, it can look like distraction, it can look like I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. It can look like um, it's like I don't want to step out because of whatever fear I'm feeling. It can look like very many different things. In our estimation, it is a matter of understanding that one cannot allow the healing to happen if one cannot acknowledge that the fear exists, that the fear is normal, that the fear is able to heal itself if one will allow it to be.
So what, thank you. Would would this be a good interpretation, not of well, somewhat of what they're saying, but like when I think about, okay, let's say I'm triggered into fear. So there's like, you hear about fight, flight, fawn, freeze. You hear about reactions to fear. So like one of the reactions to fear could be anger, could be moving into control to do something. It could like move you almost away from the fear into another feeling, into another mode of being, into action. Are those examples of disallowing fear?
It is important to understand that that is part of the process. When one is able to allow oneself to feel those feelings, one is able to say, oh, okay, I don't like this feeling. I'm moving on to some other feeling. Therefore, disallowing the original feeling, therefore, unallowing it to be healed.
Yeah. And I feel like that's like a very simplified way of looking at what could happen because okay, so like when I observe um what's going on in humanity right now, or at least in the humans in my life, whether it's on social media or people I know. There's a lot of things that are triggering fear in people. And they're moving into activism, which is a beautiful thing, right? But it sounds like it's an avoidance pattern to avoid fear. They're moving into judgment of others, which is another avoidance, right? Let me not feel the fear. Let me judge someone else who thinks that this thing that I fear is okay. Um,
I think it could be, but I think it's also motivation to move forward. I don't see it as a deterrent.
yeah, I guess maybe it depends on the person if they allow the fear and then move into something else, or if it's so nuanced that like it can all
Because
happen at the same time.
But what I'm thinking about when you said to make the change, to take action and make a change,
Yeah.
I don't see that as fear. I see that as acknowledging the fear exists and saying, okay, this is what I know, this is what I want, and I have the power to do something about it.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to understand though is, and again, I'm sure it's nuanced from person to person, is like is that one of the benefits of fear that it moves us into change? But are we moving into change from a place of fear? So are we actually moving from a place of unhealed? Do you see what I'm saying?
Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so like, and then is it healthier to move into a place of activism from a healed place? And I say healed because that's not the best word because I think healing is so much more dynamic than saying I am healed and now I'm an activist. You know what I mean? But like first feel the fear, feel the feeling, let it move through you, and then move into activism because you're not moving from a triggered space or you're not making decisions from the place of fear. You're making decisions from a place, from a healthier place. You see what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
guess, what does the multitude have to say on that?
It's important to understand, my dear, there are many places for many people to allow themselves to be who they are. However, in our estimation, one can only allow oneself to act from the sense of self of being. If one believes there is fear underneath, one will not take a positive action. One will allow oneself to move forward differently. If one understands that there is a fear, and I don't like it, and takes one's power from that state of being, then one acknowledges that the fear is there and is able or unable to move in a direction of love and care. When one acts from love and care, it is quite different from one acting in response to fear, as not always is there a response to fear. It is allowing of oneself to be who one is, when one is, and allowing the power of oneself to step forward. In our estimation, however, there are those that who may believe that there is an issue of some sort with someone or something. Therefore, it may or may not be a judgmental issue. In our estimation, when one knows who one is and what one wants and moves forward from that place of being, there is not always a judgment involved. It is a matter of acknowledging that I like this, I don't like that, I want this, I don't want that, and moving forward from that place of self-empowerment. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Thank you. I'm gonna leave that there because, yeah, I think that's a personal message for each person to digest on their own. I don't want to influence in either way. Thank you. Okay. So my next follow-up question to this is, for the last 8 years, Americans have been quite divided. I'm not getting too political here, don't worry. It's in more of a general sense. Um, and you can see where fear exists on either side of the aisle, if you will. Um, and often it's in response to whoever is in leadership that a lot of anger comes up, fear, fear of how that leader might affect their personal lives. Um, so then, so that makes me think about that particular leader and how they stepped into this incarnation on a level to affect millions of people. And when I think of that on the soul level, it's like, wow, that's a big job they signed up for, right? Um, with that in mind, like, do those souls, like, is it part of their contract to come here to trigger so many people as an invitation to heal those things such as fear?
It is important to understand that there are those things on the earth plane that calm fear, those things that create fear, those things that heal fear, and those things that move one forward. If one chooses to be a catalyst of change, so to speak, one is able to move forward in a myriad of ways. One does not need to create fear in order to move the energy forward. However, when one does, one has chosen to make changes. They have not always specified how they wish to make the change, and therefore they are free. As on the earth plane, there is a great deal of free will. They are free to move forward in any way they choose. In our estimation, some are able to move forward in one direction, some are able to move forward in another direction, and in our estimation, all is change, all is energy, all is able to move everyone forward just differently. In our estimation, when one chooses to come to the earth plane to create havoc and upheaval, one chooses to do it in order to allow change to occur. Some again choose on a higher level of being and allow themselves to create change in a positive way. And some choose to come in and allow themselves to create a negative catalyst for change. However, whatever it is, or however they choose, change is made, and change is the goal. Do not be concerned. When one is ready to move forward, one does in any direction. It does not matter. In our estimation, it is quite as it needs to be at this time to create a great deal of change, which is required at this time. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Oh, okay, hang on, I gotta write something so I don't forget. Okay, that was huge, I think. So it sounds like if a soul chooses to incarnate and one of their goals is to affect a massive amount of change, they don't choose from that kind of soul standpoint how it is they're going to affect that level of change.
They
That
could.
comes down to the free will. Oh, you're saying that they could.
There's no limits.
Yeah, yeah.
There is no limit. We are limitless beings, and there is no limit to how we can create change, make change, allow change, or how we choose to behave. In our estimation, my dear, it is important to understand that everyone has the freedom to be who one is. It is just a matter of how they choose to allow themselves to express that freedom on the earth plane. In our estimation, one way or another, change is created. And in our estimation, it does not matter how, it just matters that it is created. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Okay. Yeah, because part of me wants to be like, oh, well, they decided on the soul level to create massive change, but when they got here, their free will, they had the option to do good or bad. And my guess is they kind of go based on who they are, based on all the lifetimes they've lived, on how they choose to carry that out.
Yeah. In our estimation, my dear, it does not matter so much on what they know, but what they wish to learn and create. It is more based on the learning object of being rather than the learned knowledge of being.
Okay. So one of the things they said that change is required at this time. What type of change is required at this time?
It is important to understand that there is a great deal of havoc having been created on the earth plane. And it is time to allow the change that is initiated in spirit to allow itself to, I just see it like raining down or coming through. It is important to understand that when one is able to allow oneself the ability to accept the energy of being, accept that one is who one is, and allow oneself to move forward from that state of being, one is able to create a great deal of change within themselves. However, when there is a great deal of havoc on the earth plane, there is a lot of that energy that is blocked from being allowed person by person by person. It is a matter of understanding each person has the ability to allow the self the growth required when it is required. And if it is that one is unable to access that part of themselves, then one is unable to make the change. In our estimation, creating havoc on the earth plane at this time is able to help each one become more in their knowing of what's right for them, of what they believe, what they allow within themselves, what they want for themselves, what they want for others. Therefore, there's a great deal of growth in our estimation. If everything was all hunky-dory, all level and even, there would be no catalyst for change. There would be no reason for anyone to grow or anything to grow or change. In our estimation, all is required. Peace and calm is required. Havoc is required. Negativity or positivity, however one chooses to call or relate to that, is all required as one is able to move oneself forward. And that is the goal of coming to the earth plane, is to move oneself forward in one's own energy of being, one's own energy of allowing, and one's own energy of self. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Yeah, I mean, we think about the Renaissance era and how before that there was a lot of, I think there was a plague, there was some government turmoil, and out of it came like this massive amount of creativity and ingenuity. So I remember when COVID hit, I was like, and watching humanity struggle with this and the upheavals that came, it was like, oh wow, what's gonna come out of this? It's gonna be something good, like only good can come from, I don't know, I just had this deep knowing. And I remember sharing it with some people and they'd be like, how can you imagine anything good coming of this? And it's like, well, that's just how the pattern is. Like that's the pattern of creation.
Right?
Like the earth was born, whether you call it a big bang or God whispered a word. Like that's a form of chaos. And in science, like it's been proven time and time again that um, self-organization happens after chaos. And
Yeah.
then peace, and then there's more chaos, and then self-organization and peace and more. It's just a cycle. It's like, and you can see that cycle in a plant. It's buried in darkness. The seed is buried in darkness. And then breaking through the soil looks like absolute chaos, the change from dark to light, this massive amount of upheaval. And then oh, wait, I'm in the light. Oh my gosh, look at me, I'm growing. Look at this beautiful flower I have. And then death back into the earth. And then it just cycles again and again. Like, I really feel like we can look to nature for answers and hope and how to find clues to what our future might look like. So, with that in mind, my next follow-up question, unless you have something else you want to say, Ginny, before I,
No?
is what themes can we look forward to as a result of the chaos eventually settling? Like, what can they tell us about what to look forward to after the period of chaos? Like, what are the attributes that humans can expect to experience?
It is important to understand that when one is on the earth plane, one has come for oneself to experience, to know, to learn, to understand, to move forward within oneself. If it is that one is looking for the all of humanity to grow and to learn, that can only happen on an individual basis. If one is able to move forward within oneself, and then become part of the change of being, that is fine. If one is looking forward to peace and it's like cohesiveness in all of humanity, it cannot happen because each one grows at each one's own pace, at each one's own time, within each one's own knowing. Therefore, we would highly recommend that you not look for a general healing of all that is, just a matter of understanding. Each one is responsible for one's own growth, love, care, and understanding. And in connection with each and every other one's own growth, love, and care, and understanding, then the information will flow, the energy will grow, and there will be much more cohesiveness. However, not everyone is capable of that ability at this time. As each one grows at each one's own pace through each and every one's own lifetimes of being. In our estimation, we would highly recommend that each one focus on what they know, what they need, how it is for them to be on the earth plane, and how it is for them to move forward in the best of their ability. That is all that is required. If one is looking for complete connection, complete calm, complete cohesiveness, it cannot happen. Do not be concerned, all is love.
I totally get that. And I appreciate them bringing it back to the individual because, I think that when you listen to people in like new age spirituality, let's say different podcasters or writers or they say they're channelers, whether they are not, not sure, but and they talk about the energies. This has become something for me that I actually am repelled by. The energies, it's like whose energies? Like yours or somebody else's? Like, let's focus on the self. And the multitude has taught me that, right? So I appreciate them bringing it back because I think that we kind of bypass our own feelings by blaming it on the energies of the collective. And certainly you may be sensitive enough to feel all of that, but it's still about your feelings. You're in resonance maybe with the collective energy. So let's admit to what's ours as individuals. But so I think what they're saying is important because like the expectation and the waiting on uh some sort of collective experience through like it is good to have hope, right? Like for me, I'll just talk about me because I don't want to project on anyone. But like for me to witness this going on, for me to see, oh, there's chaos, and to have my own personal understanding that I just shared earlier about like how the plants grow and cycles, like typical cycles of nature. I find hope in that like, oh, something good is probably going to come out of that. So it's my choice to step into that way of understanding.
Yeah.
But not everyone will choose that mode of understanding. And so even in like, okay, so let's use like the Renaissance era, and I think there was like the Black Plague. I could be misquoting some of this in history, but I just remember reading something where like, there was chaos and then the Renaissance era developed. And so that's like, you can look at it from the collective view. But if you were to zoom in on the Renaissance era, which looked really creative and virtuous and like peaceful, maybe, if you were to zoom in on individuals, there was still suffering. There were still people who were struggling, who in their own path and their own experience, there was chaos. Yeah, so to kind of zoom out and look too far, it can be a place to find peace, but also there's no such thing as perfection. Well, unless you find perfection in everything, in the chaos and in the peace and in everything in between, you know? That's like I was talking with a client the other day about there's a term out there, non-duality, right? And it's like people are, I want to get to a place of non-duality. And it's like, well, you're on the earth plane. You're in the wrong place for that. This is
Right.
where we experience duality. We're going to experience chaos and we're going to experience peace. You're going to experience both. There is no such thing as non-duality here unless you choose to find that middle ground, which would be the non-dualistic, unless you can find that middle ground within the duality, right? If you can find neutrality, your response to duality, if you can find neutrality in your response, then that's how you might experience non-duality, but you're not going to experience
I don't
perfection.
know.
Yeah. So it's my little rant, I guess. Does the multitude want to add to that in any way?
We would like you to understand that on the earth plane, it is true. It is a duality type of being. It is that part of oneself that has come to figure out, to learn who one is, when one is. If one were to come to the earth plane all knowing, one would have no motivation to move oneself forward. Therefore, one creates a state of non knowing and allows oneself to access the part of knowing in order to allow oneself the growth required in a negative or positive way. In our estimation, those labels are only earth labels. They are not those that are at all admissible on the spiritual level. As there is no good or bad, there only is. Therefore, we would highly recommend that each one look deep into one's own heart and allow oneself the growth required in order to move themselves forward in that which they know, in that which is right for them, in that which they understand about being who they are, why they are, and when they are. Do not be concerned, all is love. We would also like each one to understand that when one is on the earth plane, they have come for a reason. They have not come to allow the earth plane any dignities or indignities. They have come to allow themselves to grow, to be, to understand, to learn, and to love. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Okay, I have one last question. I can't remember what time we started recording, but I feel like it's been a good amount. So, and I thought we'd get to all of these demons of the chakras, but maybe we'll continue that in the next video.
I think
Although,
I think there's plenty to do just one at a time. One.
yeah, for sure. But I also feel like the teachings here today, you can substitute wherever they say fear, you can substitute it with shame or guilt or um, grief, whatever. Maybe there's nuance.
Yeah.
But my closing question is going to be, what is the antidote for fear?
It is important to understand that when one looks within to see that which is right for oneself, one is able to access that part of self that says, yes, there is fear. Yes, I am afraid to move forward. Yes, here are reasons A, B, C, and D. And in our estimation, none of those reasons are valid. It is only a feeling. And when one is able to feel that feeling and say, I am safe, I am in the right place at the right time, doing exactly what is right for me, one is able to move forward in that knowing of self. It is in the knowing of self where one is able to heal many feelings of misgiving, many feelings of unknowing, many feelings of who one is. Do not be concerned. It is in that part of self that knows. Do not be concerned. All is love.
Awesome. I feel like these are some pertinent messages for our time right now.
It
And
sounds,
I feel a lot of peace hearing some of this. I don't know about you, Ginny.
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, if you guys are listening to this and you have questions like, but what about this? And what about that? Would love to hear from you. Go to my website, www.themindfulherbalist.com. Click on the menu, click on the self-connection. You'll be brought to a page about this channel. And you can submit your questions at the form at the bottom of that page. Try to keep them short and concise if you can. That really helps me to formulate the question into something manageable. And then if you have personal questions about your journey, especially if you're feeling challenged in these times and you want more personal perspective, visit Ginny's website, ginnybrown.net.
Yes.
Okay. And see if you can make an appointment with her and she can channel answers for you personally. And I know for me, I've often found, well, I always go to Ginny when I'm like really struggling and I bring my, it's like, yeah, it's usually when I'm like in the hardest parts of my life. And I find the messages come with healing, right? There's
Always.
words that bring peace, but there's an energy that comes through that when I leave, I feel like, okay, I can tackle this now. I'm gonna be okay. So reach out to Ginny for one-on-ones. She's available for you. Anything you want to add on that, Ginny?
Yeah, there is always healing that's involved in the messages. And I forget to mention that a lot of times because, yes, I channel them, but I forget that they are healers as well as teachers. And a lot of healing energy comes through as well. Other than that, it's just like, thank you everyone for joining us. And I hope you find these videos helpful and meaningful. And we enjoy doing them. I know I do. So
Yeah, me too, Ginny. I get some extra Ginny time and it satisfies my curiosity, but also like as an overthinker on spiritual topics, I feel like the multitude just kind of goes, okay, you agree? And they ground it into something manageable. And because like, I can get carried away with how I think about these topics and they just like simplify it, ground it. And I find that it kind of like unscrambles things so I can just move forward like, oh, well, that was simple. I don't know why I made it so complicated.
yeah, and one thing that they told me one time is that because I would go and I'd look for this information here and that information there, and they would always say, get to know who you are, know what you want, know what you know first before you get someone else's ideas and someone else's, information of being. And it's an inside job, basically. It's all about what you need, what you want, and what you know.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like their messages because I could go to a medium or a psychic and I can get concrete answers that might satisfy my ego because I think they tap into that ego level that satisfies the ego. But then I often would find like, but that's not like a tool for me to operate in the future. Do you know what I mean? I feel like the multitude really brings it back home to me, to empower me to know for myself without giving me. So sometimes the answers aren't satisfying, right? Like they don't satisfy my ego that wants to know exactly why and when and how. But they can help me connect to myself so that I find my own answers instead of finding them outside of myself. So I love that.
Yeah, and your connection with yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
always.
Well, thanks, Jen.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks to the multitude.
I just want everyone else to know also that Kelly does do herbal work, but she also does a lot of energy work. So if you need information from Kelly, feel free to contact her. And you can through her website that she has given you information on.
Yeah,
So,
no, thank you, Jenny. You're so sweet.
so for me, that's all I have for today.
Yeah, and all those links are in the video description. I think that's what the section's called on YouTube, so you can click on them there. So thanks everyone for watching. Submit your questions, reach out if you need some one-on-one guidance, and we'll see you next time on the Self Connection.
Yes. Bye, everyone.